We're going to take a look at the best decks in the game at the moment. We've got tons of decks and a lot of different archetypes. What is going to give you the best success? Daken's recently come to the game, so you're seeing a lot of destroy, but there's also some archetypes that are still lingering from past cards that have recently come out that shook up the meta. So we're going to make sure to look at all of these and we'll go over our thoughts. We'll throw in a couple meme decks as well. Which of these best decks in Marvel Snap are you most excited to play? Which ones did we miss that you think should be included? Definitely comment below so we can have a nice dialogue about what are the best decks in Marvel Snap. I've got to start this off by continuing to promote W's Comfort Thanos deck. This deck is very, very good. You can use it throughout metas and different metas. It's always going to be a nice staple. It's got some powerful lockdown. It's got some ability to shift into lanes that you might not have gotten power to through Claw. Thanos and the Infinity Stones are always something that are going to make any deck better. It's one of, if not the best big bad in the game. You've got Shang-Chi to take out any big cards. You've got a Nebula to potentially get somebody to play in a different lane. Iron Lad to copy basically any card here is pretty good. The only downside is maybe a Cosmo in a lane you don't want or a Reality Stone in a lane you don't want, but even then it's not the worst because you're still going to be able to draw some cards with the Reality Stone draw. In Cosmo, you still could potentially lean into your ongoings. Jeff, Thanos, and Iron Lad might be some cards that you might not have from this deck. If you do not have Thanos, honestly, it's a different deck, so that one has to be in there. Iron Lad and Jeff. Jeff gives you some flexibility of Professor X. Iron Lad just helps you get some of these other cards potentially earlier. Blue Marvel, Devil Dinosaur are probably your best, most ideal. Spider-Man is very different now, but I think you can still use him in a deck like this to be able to manipulate people's locations. Now we're going to look at some Legion decks, and we're going to lean into untapped.gg because they've got some stats here. Legion is one of the cards, and these decks that we're going to show are still impacting the meta. Not as many people might be playing them because we've got Daken in there and everyone's playing around with Destroy, but Legion is still a force to be reckoned with. In this particular deck, it's got a great win rate. This one leans a little bit more into some moves, but if you look at it, what do you got moving? You've got Kraven to pick up the points from the move, from Jeff, a Polaris to bring a card into Kraven, potentially Captain Marvel to move into Kraven. So Kraven's really just there to get some additional points from really a couple moves. It's not a move deck per se. Oh, by the way, now Spider-Man can bring potentially a card into Kraven as well. Angela and Kitty just to kind of tick some points there. Miles is going to be a cheaper card given that you're going to have so many opportunities to move. Shang, obviously for taking somebody out. Hulkbuster to build up, ideally Kitty, but really can go to almost any card here. And then Legion to manipulate your opponents. Now, there's not a lot of games here, and you can see above that we're looking in the last 30 days for this one. So we're going to look at one more Legion deck on here that's similar but slightly different. And really all this one does is it drops Hulkbuster and gets in Nightcrawler to give you some more Kraven points. So it's really leaning into that Legion move concept with Kraven. Now again, no storms in these Legion decks. How about another? This one is also looking to lean into some move. It adds Silk and Jean Grey. We talked about Jean Grey a little bit on the token guide that we did the other day. I still do not recommend buying her for 6,000 tokens, even though she can be strong. But if you did get her, then I think in a deck like this could be nice to make your opponent play in a certain spot. And guess what? You can play your Spider-Man and move cards from there. So your opponent is really getting dictated to where they need to play. Kraven potentially in somewhere else where people are moving cards to, rack up those points. The stats on these Legion decks are really leaning to move, but I've got one that I still like a little bit different that I'm going to show you that I made. This is the one that I did that doesn't necessarily lean into the move as much. I don't have any Kraven here. I went into the Darkhawk aspect of things, and I really, really like it. I went to Infinite with this. I got a lot of good conquests done with it, even an Infinite Border. You've got a lot of ability to control what your opponents are doing with Spider-Ham, with even Lizard, getting them to potentially play in one particular lane. You've got some flexibility with Captain Marvel, potentially to move around if you need to. Iron Lad, again, to copy a whole bunch of stuff. What's the worst Iron Lad copy here? It's probably Lizard. Every single other Iron Lad copy here is pretty good. Legion, maybe it won't proc a location that you want, but that's not the end of the world. But Lizard, that's the worst one. All of the other ones, they're all good. None of them are bad. So throw a ton of rocks at your opponent, get a good, nice, solid Darkhawk, and you will have great success with this one. Similar, but a little different, I want to point out a Dera version of this deck as well. He's got almost the exact same one as I have. I think the only difference we've got is he's got Killmonger and Enchantress, where I have Captain Marvel and Absorbing Man. So a little bit different, but a lot of the same concepts. These decks are still really, really good. I actually think Dera used this one to potentially win that Conquerors thing. I could be wrong on that, but it's a good deck. And again, I want to point out, none of these have this Storm Legion meme aspect of things, which you can still lean into if you want. We've still got to look at Stature and Black Bolt. These cards are still out there. I'm going to show a deck later that leans into the Daken Death Destroy thing. And one of the biggest counters I faced with that deck, I had a 92+ win percent on that deck to immediately climb to infinite. This is one of the counters to that, because anytime I got my death low, guess who came in and knocked it out? Yeah, and it hurt bad. And it was like, and then they also got a Stature out of it. Not fun to do all that work and just to get something removed that was going to really make you feel like you're going to win the game. So you got to be careful when you snap here. These cards, it's sort of a Dark Hawk Stature, good cards-ish. They're all good. So you're leaning into Dark Hawk once again. You've got Iron Lad to copy anything. Killmonger can take out and remove some space for yourself or take out things for your opponent. Shang-Chi is obviously going to take out any big cards from your opponent. Flexibility with Captain Marvel. You've got Enchantress, Rock Slide, Iron Lad, Captain Marvel, Shang-Chi, Dark Hawk. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 4-cost cards for Zabu to hopefully bring in cheaper. And then you've got your Black Bolt and Stature to pair up to take something away from your opponent and get a cheap Stature as well. Lots of options here, and you can save your Dark Hawk for a potential last play along with Stature if things line up right, and you can not have to worry about somebody entrenching yourself. Maybe you don't have Iron Lad and you do have Spider-Ham. You could swap those out. Spider-Ham is another great card. It's a low-cost card to help you get something on the board when you don't have anything to play, or you're capped at a certain energy point. You're like, well, I'm at 5 and I've got a 3 cost from one of my 4s. So here I am. I'm going to play maybe, I don't know, Captain Marvel and Spider-Ham. That's a great turn 5. We've got to show discard because it's popping up yet again. It's been around for a long time. Some people don't really like to play it. I'm going to show a different version, but this is sort of your base discard that you might play. This one's got a decent cube rate and a decent win rate. It's your typical foundation, Nebula just to rack up some points, Morbius, obviously, to rack up any discards that you're doing. Wolverine and Swarm, they're just great low-cost cards to be able to discard to get free Swarms or Wolverine on the board, Colin Wing to help hit those. Gambit is not a bad one here. You just got to make sure you're smart about when you play him, because if you want to save your MODOK for late, or you want to use your Dracula and you play Gambit before that, you might take out a card of yours that you don't want to hurt. So be careful ever using Gambit in discard. It's a fun card, but it can cost you. Moon Knight, I actually think that Moon Knight pairs up really good with Stature, which we talked about a little bit. I'll show a deck for that in a short bit with this discard as well. Lady Sith is the old reliable, making sure that you always hit APOC. Love it. Dracula, great 4-cost card to put on the board to get that APOC late. MODOK to clear out everything that you got in hand to potentially give Morbius more points, bring Wolverine onto the board, free Swarms, make APOC go higher. All good things. And then America Chavez just to make sure that the deck is more consistent for yourself. Overall, I think discard's good. We're going to look at a different discard version. So I've got 2. I've got a Moon Girl discard version that we're going to look at. I wanted to try to get something going here. This is Daken inspired. Moon Girl to potentially double things up. Quinjet to help those things cost less. I think this could actually go certain places. There's a lot of fun with what can happen with Daken if you can double up those shards. Moon Girl's placement is very important. Absorbing Man can help Daken get some additional shards, but you got to remember, Absorbing Man is not going to double up or anything like that. He just does the unreveal, which puts more shards into your hand. MODOK helps clear out the hand, and we're going to lay into that in the next discard deck, which I think might be a little meme, but it actually does okay, believe it or not, with a card that's legitimately trash in game. A lot of these other cards are the same as the other discard list, and you always end with America Chavez just to try to have some more consistency. The meme-ish version that I'm playing with right now is this one. I call it Daken Strong Guy Discard. Now look, Strong Guy is arguably one of the worst cards in the game, but I will say there is a lot of times that I get this absolutely work. Now, you might say, where's America Chavez? I don't like America Chavez in this deck because if I don't draw MODOK, I want that last chance to draw him. And I will tell you, there are so many times that I won't draw him early and I'm on turn 5, I'm like, well, I lost. There's nothing I can do because I know I'm getting America Chavez next turn and I need more from a card than her. I like Ghost Rider in this combined with Moon Knight and Black Cat because I don't care what Moon Knight discards in my hand, depending when I play it, assuming that I've got Ghost Rider. Even if he discards Ghost Rider, I'm like, okay, all right, whatever. I'm trying to clear out my hand for the most part anyway. Morbius, I'm trying to get all the points from anything that I'm discarding in hand. Zabu, you know, look, I've got 3 4-cost cards in this. He does help a little bit. I could maybe see the use of a Nebula in here, maybe instead of a Zabu, and then not worry about the 4-cost. But there are times where I'll play 2 of those 4-cost cards on turn 6 because I might not have drawn MODOK and I'll still do decently. With Black Bolt and Stature, I can also play a good turn 5 without MODOK and still play a good turn 6 with Stature. And again, I've got Moon Knight in here to help proc that Stature as well. I'm really sort of enjoying this deck. Now, is this going to get you like a guaranteed infinite ticket or something like that? I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, but I think it is a good deck. It is a good shell. There are a lot of good things happening with this, and I would recommend giving it a shot, even with one of the worst cards in the game in Strong Guy, which I actually think they should adjust maybe a little bit. Is if there's 1 card left in your hand or something like that, he slams it onto the board. That'd be kind of fun because he's strong. To finish up the video, we're going to look at Destroy because it is the month of Destroy and you're going to see a lot of this out here. You've got some pretty good win rates with this one. Galactus is in this list. I'm not a huge fan of Galactus, but there's so many other Destroy options here. I think it's absolutely needs to be brought up. I mean, Yondu taking out cards. You got your Bucky to get higher power with the Winter Soldier, Carnage to help destroy, Wolverine, Killmonger, Venom, Deathlock, Shuri to help double up the Nimrod. All of these are good things and your Death to potentially become free. This is your standard decent Destroy deck. It's not the one that I'm necessarily going to want to play right now because I think some Daken stuff that I'm going to show you is going to be really fun, but it is an option. Speaking of Daken, this one adds in Nova and Daken. I really like this, and Shang-Chi. It gets rid of the Galactus. You're going to do a lot of good work here. You've got multiple cards to destroy that shard. You're going to get good points on the board. You potentially could take out Yondu, but he is a nice cheap card that you can destroy a card and then use another card to destroy Yondu and not be too worried about it. Pretty good solid option to get that death cost low. But remember, I was talking about Black Bolt. He does take that death away late game, so be very, very careful. This is one of the destroys that I do really like with Daken. It leans into the Knull and Deadpool. Deadpool you can get even bigger with Hulkbuster. You've got a Moon Girl to potentially double things up. I've currently got Electro in here because you could destroy it, but if you played on 3, you need to make sure you can destroy it on 4. Ideally, you could do something with, I don't know, maybe your Bucky, your Deadpool, and then Electro, and then Venom them on 4, or even Carnage isn't so bad either. Deathlock, all of them work to get that Electro off the board. Your Daken is going to bring in the Shard, Moon Girl to potentially double up a late, strong Deadpool. I really like that play. It's too bad. I mean, man, if we could have Beast in here somewhere, that might not be bad either. Get a free Deadpool to play with Knull late. Oh, baby. The one that I like the best that brought me to Infinite in less than 24 hours at like a 92+% win rate, I call it Daken She Death. This is all about putting a number of cards on the board, getting them killed, extending with magic if possible, skipping turn 6, which is risky. Absolutely is risky because somebody might change it or lock lanes down. Legion's out there. We let off the video with Legion. So you've got to know that you might lose that turn 7 opportunity. But when you get it, it is insane. Like Moon Girl, your ideal is Moon Girl, your She-Hulk, and your Death, and slamming those down. Wave is obviously a strong counter to this as well. But you are doing so much work with this deck. It's phenomenal. You can Moon Girl your shards from Daken, throw those down, still Killmonger them. There is so much good stuff to happen here. I absolutely love this deck. I've never gotten to Infinite faster. Daken is a big impact here. Not a game changer in this deck, but he makes the deck just better. And you want to see season pass cards like that. So lay down those hoods, those Swirl Girls, those 1-cost shards, have Killmonger take them out. Watch Daken get bigger. Get your Bucky to get into the Winter Soldier. There's so many free She-Hulk slate, an Infinite when you skip a turn. I've laid down 40+ points on the last turn. That is bonkers. Nobody's going to Shang-Chi that anyway. I had one lane that was fully Shangable. They Shanged it, and I won the other 2 lanes by 15+ points. It was phenomenal. I'm going to end by promoting the Marvel Snap Zone Premium set. They've got some great decks where it's like a top 10 decks of the day. I highly recommend checking these out. It's a worthwhile premium feature if you're somebody who's looking into being really competitive and wanting to stay towards the top of the Marvel Snap game. They've got a lot of the deck types that we talked about before. We've got the Dark Hawk type, just good cards deck. Legion's in there. High Evolutionary, She-Moon, Infinite thing. Now, we didn't talk about High Evo. He's not falling off, but he's not used as much. That's an option for sure. They've actually still got a bounce deck in here that seems to be doing pretty good in a low amount of games. Again, remember, this is per day. but maybe bounce is still there. Shuri, always strong. Something to definitely take a look at. Not a lot of difficult cards to get in there outside of maybe Sauron, but now he's Series 3, right? Yeah, I mean, all of these are pretty reasonable to get. You can compete with this. They've got some Galactus, some Venom Destroy, Paper's Mental Takedown. I want to end with this one. This is kind of fun. It's a Surfer version with Daken. You got Shadow King to potentially bring something down late. Nova to get points to all your cards late in game, considering a Killmonger. Juggernaut to push things around. Polaris to, again, move cards around. You love everything about this. This is a lot of cheap cards. How high are you going to get with this? I'd love to see it. Surfer Daken is a real thing in game. So I appreciate you checking out this video. We wanted to go over some of the best decks in the game right now. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. If you felt the video was helpful, please consider hammering down that like button. And until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day.